This is Sci-Fi Lysis, dissecting the science behind your favorite stories. Blindsight by Peter Watts has a well-earned reputation as one of the most scientifically ambitious, hard sci-fi novels of recent years. The story weaves together elements of transhumanism, the nature of consciousness, and the likely challenges of understanding complex alien life. But maybe it tries to cram too many big ideas into a single container. So let's cut this space squid open, poke around its guts, and see if we can rearrange its internal organs into something more streamlined. Plot summary. Spoilers. In 2082, an array of mysterious objects plunge into Earth's atmosphere, emitting complex signals into space. An unknown alien presence has taken a photo of the entire planet. The world shrugs and returns to its technological march towards post-humanism. A mysterious comet appears, so a team of 5 specialists assemble to investigate. When they approach the comet, it vanishes. Was it some kind of decoy? The ship changes direction towards a brown dwarf star that recently appeared on the edge of the solar system. The main character is Siri, who had half his brain removed as a child to treat epilepsy. This gives him the ability to analyze people's behavior without feeling involuntary empathy. So he is sent on the mission to observe the others and secretly report to mission control. The team leader is a vampire, Sarasti, a formerly extinct branch of humanity with predatory tendencies and savant-level intelligence, who is linked to the ship's AI, which controls the mission. Also on board is a biologist with enhanced sensory abilities, a linguist who has split her brain into 4 distinct personalities, and a security expert who interfaces with her swarm of drones. The ship reaches the brown dwarf star and discovers a massive ring of twisted spikes made of carbon nanotubes with a warm, oxygen-free atmosphere inside. The alien ship replies to messages, warning the crew that it would be dangerous to approach due to radiation and magnetic fields. The linguist figures out that whatever is messaging back is just imitating language without knowing what it means, a classic Chinese room experiment. Robotic probes are fried by the radiation, but humans can explore for a while, provided they return in time to have their shredded DNA repaired. They experience hallucinations from the magnetic fields, then discover squid-like creatures called scramblers, which can hide in plain sight. They kill one scrambler, then return again to capture 2 alive. They study the scramblers, torture them to crack their language, but realize they wanted to be captured so that they could spy on the humans. The vampire leader attacks the main character for some unknown reason. The crew mutiny and kill the vampire, and then the alien structure fires a weapon that cripples the ship. In a final move of desperation, the crew crash the antimatter fuel store into the alien structure to destroy it. The main character is jettisoned in a status pod to report back to Earth, but discovers that vampires have taken over the planet during his absence. The science. I'll be skipping over space travel and stasis and computer-mind interfaces, as they are fairly common tropes. I'm also skipping over the vampire part. It was a fun idea, but the scientific justification made no sense for me. My suspension of disbelief crumbled when I was told vampires lack a protein and feed on humans to replenish it, which completely ignores digestion and the blood-brain barrier, along with a grab bag of other attempted explanations for vampires. The most interesting part of the story was the scrambler life forms and the alien structure, so I'll focus there. The interior of the structure had no oxygen in its atmosphere, but we know oxygen seems to be essential for the higher energy metabolism needed for complex multicellular life. In the real world, animals called loriciferans were recently discovered living in permanently anoxic environments, but these are under a millimeter long and less complex than tardigrades and nematodes. Instead, the scramblers in the story are explained as being packed with ATP, an energy-storing molecule, which they presumably accumulate during their development deeper inside the structure, and which they then burn during their limited lifespan. Each of the creatures also had 2 navels, suggesting that they developed in stacks like budding jellyfish, a bit of cool developmental biology which I quite enjoyed. The human body, by comparison, turns over about its body weight in ATP every day, so the scramblers should only be capable of being active for a few hours of comparable activity, though in humans some of that metabolism is spent dealing with the toxicity of oxygen itself. Oxygen is a highly reactive, metastable molecule. Radiation damage creates free radicals in the body, which then causes a cascade of biological damage involving oxygen. This means that an anoxic environment could potentially make it easier for the scramblers to withstand intense radiation. However, protein chains are also degraded by radiation. They are usually replaced by new proteins in earthly life, provided that the genes that produce them haven't been damaged. Therefore, proteins can be thought of as disposable emissaries of genes, which are usually more carefully protected. In the story, humans underwent major repairs in between their journeys to the alien structure, with the radiation damage being repaired in their medical pods. This kind of technology would have had an easier time rebuilding a new body from scratch rather than repairing a damaged one. So I'll have to dock a few marks from the biology in the story here for the sheer reliance on hand wavium. In the story, analysis found there was no DNA inside the scramblers. Instead, the story hinted that they might have a prion-based metabolism, but this makes no sense since prions are an infectious misfolding of existing proteins, which themselves must be formed by genes. Some microbes perform non-ribosomal protein synthesis, using protein-based enzymes to connect different amino acids together. This is often used to create short peptides which contain unnatural amino acids used for various defense purposes. The story might have been more interesting if it suggested the DNA part of the superorganism was buried so deep in the structure that they couldn't sample it directly on the periphery. This would be similar to how red blood cells are created from complete bone marrow cells but shed their nucleus before travelling to the periphery of an organism. Interestingly, red blood cells also lack mitochondria, so they can't use oxygen directly themselves. The do-over. For me, the story tries to cover too many core concepts, as interesting as they all are. If I reworked the story, I would focus on human blindsight, mismatches between senses and cognition, plus the mysterious biology of the scramblers. Here is how I would build a novella-length story around this core premise. Earth is carpeted by an array of firefly probes from outer space. They emit a signal which is traced back to a massive dark object approaching the edge of the solar system. Robotic probes are sent to investigate, but are destroyed by powerful magnetic fields and radiation. A crew of 3 humans is sent to intercept. Each are linked to a central control AI for the mission. All the crew have undergone split brain operations, a standard procedure that allows the AI to interface with the remaining half of their brain. The main character functions as a psychologist and linguist, the other 2 are a biologist and a specialist in security. They take distant scans of the alien structure, but it is almost perfectly black. When they get closer, they drop non-mechanical flares to light it up and observe an enormous ring of carbon nanotubes. Attempts to communicate yield a friendly reply, which is quickly revealed to be a nonsense, skimmed human transmissions, including pop culture references with no internal coherence. The structure seems to be intelligent, but not sentient. To reduce radiation damage due to oxygen in their tissues, the crews connect to an engineered symbiont organism that pumps glucose into their blood and removes lactate and carbon dioxide, allowing anaerobic metabolism for up to an hour. The main character is sent down first, alone. It's the first time in years they have been disconnected from the AI link. They notice their left hand fidgeting uncharacteristically. They punch into the interior of the structure and discover a warm, oxygen-free atmosphere. They get the feeling that the silent hemisphere of their brain is trying to tell them something, but they can't figure it out. He returns to the ship, and the AI detects multiple hand-sized organisms crawling all over him. They were somehow invisible until the AI reconnected, and his enhanced senses pointed them out. The creatures appear to be harmless, so the biology gathers them up to study them. They contain recognizable proteins, large ATP stores, but no DNA. Each one is effectively a single cell with no internal divisions. They are fairly fragile and popped with a single blow. They have no obvious nervous system and diffuse sense organs, but display remarkable intelligence when tested. The creatures build carbon nanotube structures autonomously, similar to how termites build massive complex nests with no central control. They might be useful for human fabrication, but they seem to ail and die over time. The biologist discovers that they can feed on the ATP in human blood. They must be produced somewhere else in the megastructure, just like red blood cells in the human body. The main character realizes that humans are similar to these strange creatures, mere sense organs for the AI, which is the conscious core of human society. This causes the main character to empathize with the creatures. He realizes he is accumulating irreparable genetic damage from radiation exposure, and the AI treats the crew as disposable. The character also notices that they only have these thoughts when they are disconnected from the AI, which gives them an incentive to return to the structure on future missions. Eventually, the main character wants to abort the mission, but the AI refuses. It forces them, plus the security agent, into one more final dangerous mission into the heart of the structure to find the reproductive core and sample the true cells of the creature. Traveling deeper, the main character's silent half of his body tries to stop them going further, grabbing onto the walls frantically, swatting at something invisible. The security guard character is swarmed by some invisible attacker in the dark, and the main character retreats and escapes back to the ship. He returns to find the biologist acting strangely, coughing, bleeding in odd places. Specimens of the alien are roaming the ship, applying intricate carbon fiber structures on top of the computing systems. The AI is losing functionality, but directs the main character to destroy some of the specimens, but then falls silent. The main character continues to scour the ship for other aliens, allowing the silent part of his brain to control the hand and crush the invaders. He manages to trick the delirious biologist into the stasis pod, and suspects that they may have an alien inside them feeding on their ATP. The main character manually programs the ship to return to Earth, worried they may be carrying a dangerous contaminant back that humanity will fail to detect, let alone control. As the main character drifts into stasis, they notice their silent hand clawing at their stomach. So, what do you think? How would you rewrite the story using some of the many ideas Watts assembled into his masterpiece? If you are looking for more biology-heavy, hard science fiction, be sure to check out my own upcoming series of novellas, Our Vitreous Womb, set in a distant future Earth where humanity has built a new kind of civilization on pure biotechnology. The first book, Her Unbound Helix, is out on Amazon from April 1st.